Hello, and welcome to So You Think You Can Rule Persia, the podcast where we rate and review all the kings of Persia from Diocles to Yazdegerd III. My name's Serial, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Umberto, and my pronouns are he, him. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 60, Shapur I. We're 2/3 of the way there, Serial.
Wow.
Roughly. I still haven't decided.
Might change.
The ending is complicated, legitimacy-wise, so I need to still figure out who's legitimate there, but we'll get there. We're roughly 2/3 of the way in. So yes, we are at the second king of the Sassanid dynasty. If you remember last time, Ardashir created this new empire, reformed everything, made it all nice and pretty, and hooray, we have a new dynasty on the throne. How do you think Shapur is going to do? Because so far I was looking back in our list, and a Shahanshah has followed a Shahanshah only once, with Darius and Xerxes the first, respectively.
They were awesome.
Everyone else, a Shahanshah is followed by a Shahanah.
Well, because it's really hard to have two people in a row that are so remarkable.
Yeah. So do you think Shapur is going to live up to his father, or do you think he's going to be more of a chill stabilization time, or do you think he's going to be more of a everything is collapsing again, oh no, oh no?
I hope
What's
not.
Your expectation?
I would love some golden age stuff, and knowing how we just inaugurated this new dynasty and we made it legitimate by all means necessary. And his father took a lot of time to do that and to erase anything and everything from the previous dynasty. I'm hoping it'll last a little bit longer. So I will be hopeful, and I'll say this will be really amazing, and we might have to get a Shahanshah after all.
Okay, that's exciting. I'm
hoping,
Yeah, we can see. I don't think we're ever going to get 3 in a row, but, the future will tell us. Let's see if we get another ambitious. 2 in a row. We've only had it once. Let's see if this is...
The fact that you're bringing it up and kind of hopeful makes me think that at least he's not going to suck. And things are not going to immediately
he is not going to last
collapse.
5 minutes and die.
Yeah.
Spoilers, he lasts more than 5 seconds.
You can look at the length of this episode, which I do not know yet, but I have been told that it might be long, so...
Yes, based on predictions, it will be long. So, is it long because of chaos or not? Let's find out.
Yeah.
So, first of all, let's recap Ardashir I, Ardashir the Great, and see what his deal was, what happened in his life. Well, Ardashir was a minor local king in Persia, and he slowly grew all the way to becoming king of Persia itself through possibly murdering his brother.
We don't know.
We don't know. He then rebelled against the Parthian king Artabanus IV and managed to defeat him in battle, kill him personally, and manages to take over all of the Parthian Empire. But not only that, he manages to take out Vologases VI, the pretender in the west. He manages to subjugate the Kushan Empire in the east. So he takes some lands from them, and they're vassals now, so great. Then he also fights with the Romans. He comes to a stalemate with them at one point. There is a bit of a pause in the war where the Roman emperor dies. Then Ardashir charges in and manages to take a few cities, which is very impressive. Ardashir also then tries to reform the empire to ensure that it's more stable and more centralized. He gets rid of a lot of the least useful vassal kings. He institutes a new system where his sons are basically temporary kings of important areas of the empire. So it's not a hereditary title. It's just something that you're given by the King of Kings. So that makes everything a lot more stable. And everything seemed to be going very well. He erased a lot of the Parthian identity to make sure that his dynasty was seen as the most legitimate one.
No, which is not fun, because that left us with barely any sources for the previous episodes, and also,
Yes, which is sad.
important context about the culture and what happened.
Mm-hmm. But luckily, at the end, Ardashir pronounced his son Shapur co-king, and together they ruled for a couple of years. They captured the important city of Hatra, which had never been taken before, razed it to the ground, and then Ardashir died and left the throne to his son.
Right.
So let's see how that goes.
Should have been pretty painless, right? Because they were already ruling together, so it doesn't get more, streamlined than that, really.
Yeah, also, not only that, but Shapur had helped his father in the conquest of the Parthian Empire as a young prince, so everybody knows
pretty
him
well
and loves
established.
him. Yeah. He's not just some guy. He is a prince who has earned his place next to his father.
Amazing.
So Shapur is a name that means son of a king. Shah.
In case it wasn't clear. Still,
in case you didn't know who he was. Yar. And according to Al-Tabari, he was nicknamed Shapur al-Junud, which means Shapur of the armies, which is, a fair enough
pretty badass
name. This is to distinguish him from another Shapur called Shapur dhul Aktaf, which means Shapur the shoulder piercer.
Uh-huh.
Tune in a few episodes from now to find out what that's all about.
Okay. Dang.
Unfortunately, we don't know too much about Shapur's youth. We just know that he was the son of Ardashir and somebody called Lady Mirod. And by the time Ardashir began his conquest, Shapur was already an adult, at least a young adult, so he was probably born sometime in the 190s. There is a legend which suggests that he was actually the son of Ardashir and a Parthian princess, supposedly the last living Arsacid, but as we saw last time, the dates don't really line up for this to work because Shapur would have had to been born when he was actually an adult, and that's not how time works.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Wishful thinking, I guess.
And so we saw that during Ardashir's takeover of the empire, Shapur went along with his father and fought against the Parthians at his side, even at the climactic battle of Hormizdagan against the Parthian king Artabanus. A large relief commissioned by Ardashir tells us that Shapur killed Artabanus' prime minister, while Ardashir himself killed the rival king. So clearly he's being established as the proper heir who is parallel to his father.
Yeah, everyone did important things, and everyone, triumphed in battle, and everyone gets their triumphs and their accomplishments, is what I meant.
And if the massive relief wasn't enough to tip the other sons off, Ardashir called Shapur the gentlest, wisest, bravest, and ablest of all his children and made him his heir.
Wow.
In front of all the nobles, so that it's nice and clear. In later years, Shapur presumably helped out his father with his conquest and the reorganization of the empire, and Ardashir subjugated Nisibis, where apparently the walls just split open.
Wow.
And then the city of Hatra. And, from Hatra we get a fun story from our Arab historian Al-Tabari. Because, if you remember, Hatra resisted Trajan, it resisted Septimius Severus, it is notoriously difficult to capture, and the Sassanid forces had been besieging it for 2 full years. So how did they make it in? Well, one day, Shapur was outside in the camp, drilling the troops, walking around, inspecting, as you do when you're besieging a city. And he caught the eye of the daughter of the leader of the city of Hatra, who, of course, fell madly in love with the attractive prince.
How could you not?
And, they began to exchange messages through the siege lines. And the princess writes, "What would you give me if I were to indicate to you how you could bring about the destruction of the walls of this city and how you could kill my father?"
What? I mean, you can,
intense.
you can fall in love with the, very attractive person outside the walls, but, it's still, I don't even, I can't even find my words right now. He's still threatening your city, your citizens, everyone in there. How much do you hate
someone
your father?
agrees with you in this story.
Yeah.
But apparently, at this message, presumably imagining a imprisoned princess who is being mistreated by all her citizens, Shapur replied, "I will give you whatever you might choose, and I would elevate you above all my other wives, and would make you my closest spouse to their exclusion." She then instructed him, "Take a silver-colored collar dove,
That's difficult.
and write on its leg with the menstrual blood of a blue-eyed virgin girl."
That's very specific.
Very specific.
Like-
Don't know why we needed to know the details. Why blue eyes? I don't know.
Dramatic.
The princess then said, "Then release this bird, and it will fly onto the city wall, and the city walls will crumble away."
I don't know if this is how things work.
Yes. Apparently, according to the Arab source, the defenses of the cities collapsed. And I don't understand if, like, literally the walls collapsed, or if it was, like, an emotional thing where the defenses left them or something. I don't read Arabic, so I can't confirm with the original text. The defenses collapsed. That was the translation.
If someone can, let us know.
And yeah, and apparently the princess got all the city's defenders drunk before giving a signal to Shapur to enter the city and sack it at last.
Well, again, I don't know. This doesn't seem very ethical.
Yes. Well, somebody agrees with you because apparently the princess was, as all princesses are, extremely fine and delicate.
Oh.
Apparently she was so pale that you could see down to the marrow of her bones.
That's also
which
not
sounds
how
like
that
something you
works.
should get checked out.
Yeah. Please see a doctor.
Yeah. And seeing such a delicate princess, Shapur asked her, "How had you been raised?" And when the princess told him, it was apparently with all the most extravagant care and luxury.
Oh.
So, like, apparently I found out you can get honey from virgin bees.
That's...
Is that? Sure, I guess.
Okay, I'm gonna stop
I mean,
saying it, but...
To be fair, most honeybees haven't had sex, so technically
Yeah.
accurate, but
Technically,
weird.
that might be how that
Weird
works.
to specify.
In a weird roundabout way, you know.
Yeah. So upon finding out that the princess had betrayed a father that had treated her so well,
I was gonna say...
Shapur became furious and tied her to the horse and had it gallop away until she died.
Okay, that's very extreme.
So yeah, everybody is not doing a
But
great job
on the
here.
other hand, she did condemn an entire city
Yeah.
who apparently hadn't treated her that badly. So
No, they treated her excellently. She was like the best treatment possible.
she was just
and
like,
she
but what if
decided,
drama?
yep, kill them all. So yeah, she ended up dragged to death by a horse, which is not fun.
Yeah. Okay.
But hey, Prince Shapur has conquered a city. Huzzah.
Yeah. I mean, lucky us, I guess. Just
Yeah.
very strange circumstances.
Yeah, it happens. It's weird. Princesses do weird stuff. Who knows?
Women who can understand them.
Women. Yes, exactly. But yeah, back in the realm of history, in the year 240, after the conquest of Nisibis and Hatra, Ardashir crowned his son as co-king. And great.
Cool. This is going great.
We even have a victory relief with Shapur defeating the Romans. But instead of wearing his own distinctive crown, he is wearing Ardashir's crown to show that they're they're basically the same person.
Okay.
The person of the king has defeated them. It's not just Shapur's victory. It's him and his father
How
together.
can we tell? Because I assume
'Cause
we mostly
it looks like a different person.
Okay. I didn't know, like,
Yeah,
how...
basically you can tell that it looks like a younger man.
Okay. I didn't know how, like, accurate the depictions might have been. Because usually we go from, like, symbols and stuff.
Yeah.
So-
But based on what it looks like it was commissioned by Shapur, and it looks vaguely like him. So it's like, okay, fine. There we go.
All right.
And yeah, the co-rulership of the empire lasted for 2 more years, when Ardashir finally died in 242, leaving Shapur sole ruler of the entire empire.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what we do. Well, the first thing we need to do is attack the Romans, because we're
Always.
currently at war with them. We just took a few cities off of them. Time to fight them. So Shapur decided, since he'd recently captured Hatra, he invaded Syria and managed to put even the city of Antioch under siege, which was the third largest city of the empire. So that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of unclear if he managed to capture Antioch this time, but we definitely know that it was at least besieged and at least the outskirts were captured.
Oh.
So, good news. It's been, at least 40 years since the last time we went on the offensive and won.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, at this news, the Roman Emperor Gordian III...
I don't even remember this name, if I'm telling you the truth.
Well, you'll find out why.
Yeah.
Gordian III gathered a large army. He came from Rome, and he gathered people from all across the empire. We have some writing from Shapur himself, where he says that there are a lot of Goths and Germans in the Roman army. So apparently, coming from Germany in the Danube region. So there we are. And yeah, Gordian managed to get to the east, retake Syria, and then he pushed into Mesopotamia, where we're told that he won a first battle against Shapur. We're not sure how large this battle was, or if it was just a tactical retreat by Shapur who wanted to get to more favorable ground, but whatever it was, he was made to retreat. But Gordian was so proud of this victory that he wrote to the Senate that he would soon arrive in Ctesiphon and capture it for them.
Okay.
So, to warm up those Parthicus Maximus titles that are so fancy, and he'd be getting one soon.
So tell me how his demise went. Because I'm expecting this was a bit too premature.
Well, we have a series of different sources, Serial, because, well, first of all, it looks like there was intrigue on the Roman side, because a man called Philip made himself co-emperor with Gordian.
Uh-huh. With Gordian's, knowledge, or just, in his house?
That's kind of the mystery. Because Gordian then died mysteriously.
Ah. Right.
So what happens? There are two main options. According to Roman sources, Philip made himself co-emperor and killed his co-emperor Gordian, becoming the sole emperor. Hooray. According to Persian sources, which we actually have, we have a document called... Well, it's basically called the Res Geste Divi Sapores, which is to make a parallel with the Res Geste Divi Augusti, which Augustus had.
Okay.
So it's basically the deeds of the divine Shapur, where Shapur tells us himself what he did.
Oh, okay.
Well, in these deeds, we are told that the Roman Emperor Gordian died in battle against him.
Oh, okay.
So, which is more likely? Unclear. Let's go through the versions themselves, because according to the Persian version, it looks likely that Gordian was killed in battle because shortly after, once Philip became emperor, he made a very bad peace for the Roman side.
Oh.
He basically just gave Armenia and all of Mesopotamia to Shapur.
Right.
Said,
And if that hadn't happened, he wouldn't have had to give up so much.
Yeah, if he had a victory and then just usurped, he would have just continued to march on Ctesiphon.
Yeah.
But that's unlikely.
So maybe he did not usurp. At least he was not responsible for killing the previous emperor.
Yeah. According to the Roman sources, everything was going super well. Then the evil Philip, who might have been a Christian, so extra discrimination points, messed up everything and destroyed all the power.
These Christians. Dang.
Yeah. But yeah, according to Shapur's account, he just made a tactical retreat to more favorable ground, met Gordian in battle, killed him, and then Philip was made emperor by the army because they just needed somebody to get them home. And then Philip said, please, we're sorry. We're going to leave. We'll give you anything. And Shapur said, okay, fine. If you give me Mesopotamia and Armenia and a bunch of money, you can go home. So, yeah, we'll never probably have a 100% accurate version, but Shapur's one seems to be correct because Philip is also a convenient scapegoat for the Romans because he doesn't last long and nobody liked him.
Yeah.
So it might just be the historian saying, oh, it was this guy's fault, and Gordian wasn't the first Roman emperor killed in battle. He was just betrayed by an internal rival, and this doesn't count,
guess what, friends?
Yeah, so there we go. And Shapur had a relief of himself made, where Gordian is under the hoofs of his horse, being dead, while the King of Kings gives Philip his blessing and Philip is kneeling before Shapur on horseback.
Yeah, that leaves it pretty clear, you know.
So yeah. There's also a third character in this relief, but I'll tell you about him later.
Okay.
Of course, Serial, the Romans being Romans, as soon as Philip arrived home from having lost Armenia and Mesopotamia and an emperor,
Yeah.
he began calling himself Persicus Maximus and Parthicus Maximus as soon as he got back home. Because,
for
yeah,
what?
Sure, let's go.
Oh, you still went there, so I guess you get the title.
Yeah, it technically counts.
The title doesn't really mean anything.
It's like a stamp
anymore,
on his passport.
Yeah. Why would it have any meaning? You're in the position, you get the title. Maybe if you repeat it enough, it'll become true.
I think that's the Roman worldview. It just keeps going that way.
I mean, if you convince people that you deserve the title, they might, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just a random plebeian in Rome, you don't know what happens in Syria and Armenia. It's just like, yeah, the emperor said so, sure, fair enough.
Yeah.
But Shapur didn't have much time to enjoy his victories because there were messes. Because news of his first retreat in front of Gordian caused a small rebellion on the Caspian coast, which was not great, and Shapur had to deal with it.
Yeah. Rebellions are never welcomed.
Yeah, this might also be why Shapur was so quick to accept Philip's surrender, because, you know, sure, he could have continued the war or just taken the entire army prisoner or something, but then that would have meant the war has to continue and the rebellion would be at his back, and that makes things unpleasant and dangerous.
Yeah. Plus, like, we won, so, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So we won, it was fine, we could have won more, but we can be back eventually.
How hard can you win?
Yeah, exactly. Well, harder is the answer, Serial.
I assume.
But anyway, Shapur decided to go back to the east, and we don't have much detail, but we know that the chief of the rebels was murdered in a conspiracy, and Shapur just took time to properly subdue the revolt, to capture all the fortified cities, removing uncooperative nobles, and putting his own son Bahram, who you'll want to remember, as ruler of the region of Sistan in his name.
Noted.
So there we go. And yeah, I won't go in detail to avoid repeating too many names, but others of Shapur's sons and brothers were placed in control of local kingdoms across the empire, all of which remained loyal enough to ensure an effective distribution of power and use the empire's resources well. So, nice. Good stuff. Another important element to remember is more trouble in the east, because throughout Shapur's life, he was constantly somehow fighting with the Kushans. We have very little documentation, but we just know that it's there. And yeah, the Kushans are, just as a quick refresher, are the descendants of the Yuezhi that killed a lot of the early Parthian kings, like 300 years ago. They had created an empire from Bactria to northern India, which had grown extremely rich and powerful due to its good position along the Asian trade routes. And yeah, they're sadly not very well known, but they were an important component between India, China, and the Sassanids. And the Persians often treated them as second only to Rome. So they were cool. We don't know much about them.
Oh,
that's a shame. But in any case, Shapur was successful enough in his war against them that he established his own Kushano-Sassanid kingdom under a minor member of the dynasty. So it looks like it wasn't like a fully vassal kingdom. It seems to have either had full independence or significant autonomy, because its ruler called himself King of Kings. So that makes sense. And yeah, this separation was probably kept to maintain the similar Arsacid structure that existed previously and to avoid any unnecessary turbulence in the region while we're actually fighting the Kushans. So we want to just hold this bit of the empire, not fully have to integrate it, just give it to somebody who can handle it, and then we'll look at it later in the future. The little that we do know is that this separate Kushano-Sasanian king did his best to try and expand his empire against the Kushans, and from time to time Shapur would come there and help out once the Roman threat was neutralized. So if there's no Romans to fight, he'll just head east and beat back on that border and see how it goes. But the Romans aren't done. As we know, Serial, it's difficult to not fight the Romans for once, so we need to go back.
Of
Because
course.
apparently about a decade later, can you guess where the trouble came from?
From Rome.
Yes, but which region on the border
Armenia?
did it come? Yes, of course.
Of course.
Because the Romans broke some sort of treaty relating to Armenia. So it looks like they maybe considered Armenia to be neutral instead of under Sassanid control,
But we
and they
won
stopped
it.
paying their tribute. We won it, but the Romans are saying, well, that was the previous emperor, not me. This is the Christ of the 3rd century.
Excuse me,
They've
this
gone
is not
to
how
like
it
15
works.
emperors. Yes, pretty much.
Our treaty is with the entirety, like the concept of Rome, and not with like a guy.
Well, that is a loophole that people have often used.
Yeah, it's not the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm discussing this.
Yeah. One of the causes for the Armenian problem could have been that the Arsacid Armenian king fled from his kingdom to the Romans, where he was given asylum and mercenaries to retake his throne, after Shapur put his son Hormizd as king of Armenia. So the Romans are financing a king of Armenia against Armenia, which is now Sassanids, so that's a whole mess. Blah.
Damn Romans.
So at this point, Shapur decided, okay, time to teach the Romans a lesson. When you sign a treaty with Shapur, you respect the treaty. Yeah. Otherwise, I will come to your house. Because apparently Shapur quickly invaded Roman Mesopotamia, but he was called to the east of the empire to deal with the Kushans for a while. So he wasn't really paying his full attention. He was just small incursion. This gave enough time for the Romans to amass an army of 60,000 soldiers to fight back and invade Mesopotamia.
Now that he's not looking, quick.
Yes, now that he's not looking, run. But Jessica was faster than all of them, and she told Shapur that, hey, look to the west. The Romans are messing things up. You might want to be here personally.
Yeah, listen, we employ very skilled and competent messengers, so...
Yeah, that's important to have. And Shapur arrived and met the 60,000 Romans at a place called Barbalissus. And now, Sarah, this isn't recorded by the Roman sources. The Roman sources say nothing about this.
Sure, I'm sure,
But Shapur definitely makes sure to write this down, because he absolutely annihilates the 60,000-man Roman army, which comprised a large majority of the Roman forces in the eastern of their empire.
I wonder why nobody mentioned this in the Roman sources. Huh.
Yeah, that's weird. I wonder why.
Maybe they didn't want to write, hey guys, we were stupid and full of hubris and we got plummeted into the ground.
Yeah, but based on what happens next, it sounds like it probably happened.
Yep.
Because Shapur has free reign to just go through Syria and do whatever he wants. Because he freely pillages all of that province. He captures the city of Seleucia in Pieria, which, if you might remember, was the port of Antioch, which used to have all the Seleucid royal tombs back in the day. So, captures that city, and this time, he definitely captures the city of Antioch.
Yeah.
This is the third largest city in the Roman Empire, now in Sassanid hands.
That's what you get! Did we get Armenia back? Did they start?
Oh, yeah, the Romans didn't touch Armenia. They were just making noise about it. Armenia is now firmly in the hands of Shapur's son.
Or what?
Well, we're still fighting the war. We still need to finish it.
I see.
We have time, Ariel. We can take a lot more stuff for now. And yeah, apparently the capture of Antioch was because of a guy from Antioch who was accused of embezzling public funds who didn't want to be prosecuted. So he just let Shapur in. Just opened the gates of the city.
When you know what you're about.
Yeah, it's like, it happens. Looks like they were so stealthy getting into Antioch that some residents of the city only found out that they were being conquered when they saw arrows raining down on them during a play.
Oh, heck. Well, to conquer a city, do you need to, attack all of its citizens? Wouldn't it be enough if it,
Not really, but,
surrenders?
They might have seen some, loose arrows flying around.
Oh, okay, because I'm are we murdering the city? Because that's not great.
No,
Both, in the normal common sense of things, of course it's not great, but also if you want to keep the city, you don't want a ghost city in your empire. That's kind of useless.
Well, that is a very interesting point you're making, Serial. I will elaborate on it later because Shapur has a very specific tactic when it comes to capturing Roman cities.
Okay.
We'll see. You'll see how it goes. Also, funnily enough, the Historia Augusta, and only the Historia Augusta, says that the traitor who let Shapur into Antioch was made Augustus by Shapur, but we have zero evidence of this.
Well,
we don't know if Shapur tried to have his own puppet emperor.
I'm just gonna dismiss that.
It's just the drunk students making stuff up. We know how it is. But yeah. And yeah, once he subjugated all of Syria, Shapur went to secure his northern border by ensuring that his son Hormizd was on the Armenian throne. He also subjugated the kingdom of Georgia and Iberia. Again, Iberia and the Caucasus, but Iberia.
Yes, not Spanish Iberia.
Yes, that one. And it's also from this period that we get the really cool siege of the city of Dura Europos, which was conserved brilliantly in the desert because everybody just died there. And it was basically archaeologically kept in the last days of the siege.
Oh, what happened? A landslide?
People just left. They just won and they just decided to raise it and leave.
Wow.
Because apparently it's a Roman fort that was attacked by Shapur's forces. And we have evidence of mining and counter-mining operations underground by both sides, trying to dig under the walls or dig under the tunnels, digging under the walls, all that. We have evidence of the Sassanids building huge earthen ramps to scale the walls, and even the use of poisonous gases in the underground war by burning sulfur and bitumen, which is a sticky form of petroleum. So by burning these substances, they tried to poison everybody underground, which was intense.
Literally chemical warfare.
Yeah. Ooh. And there's a very dramatic scene in the tunnels that was conserved, which is very cool, because apparently the Persian soldiers found a Roman tunnel and planned to destroy it. There, the Romans tried to shoot back with ballistae in the tunnel, so these massive crossbows. And the Persians responded by building a wall of Roman corpses to shield them while advancing.
Woof.
And then the Persian workers set about trying to collapse the tunnel on the Romans. And we then find the remains of a Sassanid officer among a bunch of Roman corpses.
Whoa.
Where it was probably this last officer who decided to stay behind and sacrifice himself to stop the Romans from going forward.
This is so cinematic.
Which is really epic, and I love it.
Wow. Ambient storytelling.
But yeah, and we still have it conserved. It's just there. That's really impressive.
Woof.
And yeah, in the end, Dura was sacked by Shapur and abandoned, and it was claimed by the desert until it was rediscovered in 1920, which is really cool. Archaeology is fun. Fund archaeology departments, please.
Yes.
But anyway, back to the big picture. Shapur finished his pillaging of Syria, while his son, the king of Armenia, pillaged Cappadocia. And interestingly enough, Shapur didn't plan to keep any of these territories.
Okay.
Because, as you said, Serial, if you conquer a city and nobody lives there, it's kind of pointless, isn't it?
Well, yes. You won't get any resources from the city. You won't get anything to happen. It'll just be there.
Exactly. So, what is the best way to harm the Romans the most while having to invest the least?
But you can get stuff from the city. You don't have to kill everybody there.
Well, no, Serial, that's where you're wrong. Because Shapur decides that, listen, if he tries to conquer all of Syria and Cappadocia, what does he have to do? He has to garrison the areas, he has to watch for rebellions. The Romans have the Mediterranean, so they can easily resupply and attack those regions and take them back from Shapur. So it's going to be a mess, and it's going to be really expensive, really costly, and he's going to get nothing out of it. But he still really wants the people, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You know, the people are the value you would get from the land. The empty land doesn't give you much value.
Yeah. Does he just like relocate them to somewhere else in the...
He relocates hundreds of
Oh
thousands
my
of
God.
Roman citizens to Mesopotamia. So the Romans have worthless, empty cities, and Mesopotamia is now full of new citizens.
That's so smart and so horrifying. Anytime you displace people from where they live, obviously that has a
Yes.
huge impact on the culture and on the people that were living there, and because you take them from where their roots are. And also, just how do you displace that many people? Because you can't just be like, hop on a plane.
It is
We'll fly
very
you over.
complicated. I mean, you need to ensure that hundreds of thousands of people have enough to drink and eat.
Yeah, while
and
on the road.
They have to walk hundreds of kilometers to get to their new homes.
That's
which
ridiculous.
Is pretty intense. This is a really massive logistical effort. Like, if you think moving an army that size is complicated, imagine moving a bunch of random civilians with children and ill people.
That's what I mean, okay, like, I am really glad that at least he didn't just kill everybody, because that would have been the worst. But I'm glad that he's like, no, but like, there's still value here. So let's just bring the value to our, which, since it's not that easy to travel, I don't think you get an influx of citizens that often. And also, cities weren't as big as today.
No.
So actually, plenty of land to be worked, plenty of jobs to be had. It would be a boom to the economy if you bring a bunch more workers from somewhere else.
Yeah, also Mesopotamia had really been depopulated due to the constant Roman invasions and the plagues. So
you
just have a bunch of new people that can cultivate the land and make sure that everything is working better again. The empire is prospering.
That's so smart. Like, regardless of the fact that I don't agree with, honestly, just war in general, but in military tactics, that's so brilliant. Or like in managing an empire, that's so brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. And also, Shapur makes sure that he can't really entirely depopulate those regions. Like, yes, he takes as many people as he can, but he has to make choices. He has to choose priorities. And he makes sure that he gets all the most skilled Roman workers. Like, he gets people who know how to make mosaics, engineers who know how to make bridges, doctors, all these people who take a really long time to train and have specific skills that the Romans have well developed. He decides to take all of them here and bring them into his empire to ensure that they work. We even have some Roman-style mosaics from Persia, from the center of the empire, that are just Roman mosaics with Iranian motifs, because Shapur just took these people and said, hey, work for me here. Here you go. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, I can pay you with real money, not the stuff that the Romans have, which is 90% tin. And yeah, so he does a really good job here, if we ignore the massive humanitarian crisis, but, well, it's the ancient world. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think the Romans' response is, Serial?
Please don't do that. Can they attack? Because last I've heard from them, they are doing badly, so...
The Romans can do nothing. The Roman army of the East has been annihilated. All the Romans do is just weakly reoccupy the cities that Shapur has left depopulated.
Yeah.
And they say, I guess this is fine. Please don't hurt us.
It has to be pretty haunting to get to the, empty city with maybe like a 10th of the population.
Yeah.
If any.
Yeah, it's not a good time for the Romans. They're not doing well.
But this is fine, because in this podcast, we antagonize them. So we can just be like, no, we're the good guys. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine when we do it. It's okay.
Exactly.
But back to those people who we've deported, these hundreds of thousands of people we've deported, possibly millions.
To work for us now.
Yes. Apparently a lot of them were philosophers and scientists and people of the arts. So many works of literature and science were brought to the East and translated so they could be used for the benefit of our empire. So that's great. And it looks like the people who were deported weren't really slaves. It was sort of a middle ground. Because I wasn't able to find too many details, but based on what I've understood, they were basically given a region and told, okay, you people now own these lands. Each of you has this much. You can't move away, but you own these lands and you can work them as your own. So it was like, you can't move from where you are. You can't go back to Roman territory, but you are free otherwise. So it's not a great situation, but it could have been a lot worse. And Shapur brought so many of these people into the empire that he had changed his official title from King of Kings of Iran to the title of King of Kings of Iran and non-Iran. You know, the two genders. And eventually that would become the title of all subsequent Sassanid rulers. Another interesting aspect about these people being moved is that a lot of them were Christians, because the Roman East was strongly Christianized. And they were persecuted in Roman territory, but now that they're in Mesopotamia, they're free to practice their own religion and convert anyone else who's around them. And this forms quite large communities in eastern Iran, and even some bishoprics being set up. Although this will eventually evolve into something more complex later on. We'll have to see how this develops. Shapur also, having a bunch of new citizens, decided to found new settlements, or at least refound old ones. So he established specific forts along his borders to deter foreign invasions, and he made sure to settle the Roman captives in underpopulated areas to make the most of the lands that he owned. In particular, he founded the city of Bishapur and Gondishapur in Persia, where he tended to have his court so that it could be more central to the empire and less easy to attack than Ctesiphon. And according to Al-Tabari, I don't know if he's mixing himself up with a later Sassanid ruler who does something similar, but Shapur transfers a bunch of the citizens he took from capturing Antioch and puts them in a new city called Biazandiu-i Sabur, which means the city of Shapurs, which is better than Antioch.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my god. The fact that we have names like this, basically like the city that's better than yours, go suck up, you know. Just, that's hilarious.
That is very good. And yeah, for those who are listening ahead and know what happens 20 episodes in the future, this apparently just happens again. It's something that, I don't know if it's a duplication by Al-Tabari, but he reports it as happening twice, so make of it what you will. Okay, so yeah, as we saw with Ardashir, the Sassanid kings also have a significant amount of religious power. So Shapur himself is also dealing with the religious aspect of his empire, because he shows himself often to be a pious man. He founds several named fires for him, his close family members, and it looks like he was accompanied on campaign by a bunch of Mazdaean priests. But that doesn't really mean he was an especially fundamentalist man, because he made sure to collect knowledge from the Roman regions in the west and India in the east, and placed them within the Zoroastrian holy scriptures to make a sort of encyclopedia of knowledge from across the world. So he's trying to get a bit from everything. And another important person that shows up during Shapur's reign is a man called Kartir, who is a high priest who is busy building up a code of Zoroastrian laws, creating a common Zoroastrian religion from the many different local versions that existed before.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be very important for the next few episodes, so remember him, but he's just getting started now. As I mentioned before, his religious fervor doesn't make Zoroastrianism the only religion of the state, since Shapur extends religious tolerance to Jews, Christians, and this new cult, which is growing up, which is that of Manichaeanism, which is an interesting religion, which mixes Buddhism, Christianity, and Zoroastrianism, and adds Mani as a future prophet.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a bit trying to wrap my head around it because I had never heard of it before. So that's interesting.
It is a dead religion, unfortunately, because of reasons we'll get into. But Mani was apparently a guy who said he was the reincarnation of Zoroaster, Buddha, and Jesus in that order.
Wow.
And he was now back again to give out a final message use there to talk about things.
I mean, it doesn't get much more intense than that, If you want legitimacy, this is the guy.
Yeah, exactly. And he thinks all of these people have good points. Let's take all their teachings and go for it. He apparently tried to convert Shapur himself and wrote a tiny explanatory book dedicated to Shapur.
Oh.
But the king seems to have been unconvinced. But he was like, you know what? Sure, just keep doing whatever you want.
Fair.
Mani himself claims that he was given official license to preach across the empire by Shapur himself. So,
nice.
Who knows? It might be good.
Just like, yeah, I'm not my vibe, but I'm not going to stop you. Go and do your thing.
Yeah, be free. And this might be for just tolerant culture reasons, just in general, that he doesn't want to persecute anybody. But it could also be that Shapur wanted to make sure that Kartir's new religious hierarchy didn't become too powerful, and made sure that all these religions in the empire sort of played against each other, so none of them would become powerful enough to challenge the king.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd get to tolerate people, and also nobody threatens your power. So that's good.
Yeah. But I thought that this dynasty was going to incorporate Zoroastrianism into the government, or at least lean very strongly that way.
Well, 2 points about that. One point is that it is incorporating it more strongly than before. So Shapur is leading his legitimacy with a lot of Zoroastrian imagery. Let's say it's not the state's religion, but it is the king's religion.
Okay.
Basically. And what you said will become more and more true as time goes on because of things that happen. So right now, there isn't a real reason to have a fully state religion, but Shapur just is happy to let everybody worship as they would like.
Okay.
Apart from that, the economy is doing great. The Roman coins are reduced to 5% silver content. Sassanid coins are 95% silver content throughout Shapur's reign. Everything is going great because business on the Silk Road is booming, and the Sassanids control the Persian Gulf, which adds trade through India, so that's amazing. Shapur sponsored upgraded irrigation projects across the empire so that his new settlers from the Roman East can have nice, fertile fields that grow well and not random, pointless land.
Mm-hmm.
And we have evidence of Roman engineers being used to build a 500-meter-long dam and bridge in Shushtar, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site to this day, and was used to irrigate the whole region, and is still partially used by the city in the modern day in the 21st century. So that's a damn good bridge/dam.
Wow. Engineers, take note.
Yeah, that's very impressive. It's great. But, unfortunately, prosperity for the empire cannot last forever, because the Romans are back for more.
Hey.
Yeah, it looks like some border skirmishes turn into a new full-on conflict, because the new Roman Emperor Valerian, and those of you who listen to Totalis Rankium or just know history will remember this name. The Emperor Valerian has arrived in person in Antioch and wants to take the fight to Shapur.
I mean, I remember Valerian.
Do you remember Valerian? Great. Excited to see how he becomes Valerian.
Yes.
Because with the Romans marching into Mesopotamia, winning a few early victories against the border guards, Shapur heads over to besiege the city of Carrhae, which is, notable because it's where Crassus was defeated all that time ago. And during his siege, Shapur was met by the Emperor Valerian with about 70,000 soldiers. Now, Shapur abandoned these sieges to try and focus on the field battle, but fortunately for him, those cities had some sort of epidemic, which then spread to the Roman forces and reduced their effectiveness. And then at last, the two sides met for a climactic battle.
Whoa.
The Roman Emperor versus the Sassanid King of Kings.
Let's go.
And this is how the Shahnameh describes it. There was such a wailing of trumpets and clashing of Indian bells that the moon and the vault of heaven shook. There were war drums strapped to the elephants, and their thundering noise carried for 2 miles. The earth trembled, dust swirled, lances glittered like fire, and the sky seemed to rain down stars.
That sounds very intense.
So, Let's go. And well, how do you think it goes, Serial? I assume you know.
Well, I remember... I don't remember enough, but I remember the general gist of,
Okay.
very funny for the Romans.
Yes.
Hilarious,
very much.
even.
Because it is a crushing victory. The Roman army is utterly annihilated. And not only that, but Shapur managed to have a great prize.
Yep.
He captured the Roman Emperor Valerian alive.
Yep.
The first time in Roman history this has ever happened.
And we'll talk about this for a while.
Yes, I have a whole bit. Because the Roman emperor was captured together with his praetorian prefect, some senators who had accompanied him, and surviving members of the army, presumably a few thousand, based on what we know. All of these were carried to Persia as spoils of war, and we'll find out about Valerian's fate later on. Now, some later Byzantine sources say that Valerian was captured by trickery after being asked to come and negotiate with Shapur for a truce. But, it seems like it's the Romans trying to say, no, our emperor wasn't captured. They tricked us, and it wasn't fair.
That never happened.
Yes.
You have no proof.
So, now I can reveal the third figure in the relief I mentioned. The third figure is the Emperor Valerian being captured.
Yep.
So Shapur now has a beautiful relief in his empire with one dead Roman emperor, one kneeling before him, and one being captured. Which is pretty
If that
badass.
doesn't make it clear to you of our relationship with the Romans currently.
Well. Yes.
Sweet, sweet victory.
Yes. And we're not really sure what happened to Valerian, but there are several options I will mention to you. So one author claims that Valerian surrendered himself to Shapur because his army was mutinous and about to kill him, which sounds a bit weird, but, again, trying to justify things. For his fate, we have several options. Because one option says that he was captured and used as a footstool by Shapur whenever he needed to get onto his horse.
That's harsh.
And every time he would do that, Shapur would say, "This is true," and not what the Romans delineate on board or plaster.
Oof.
So saying, "I don't care if you call yourself Parthicus Maximus, an emperor is still my footstool, so shut up."
Yep. Woof.
And apparently, when Valerian died of old age, he was flayed and stuffed, with this puppet being placed in a temple and shown to foreign ambassadors to say, "Hey, here's my Roman emperor plush toy.
That's
Look
terrifying.
at him. This
What
is
are
what
you
happens."
saying? Like, it just clicked
Yes.
for me, and no.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Plush Valerian is a thing.
My god. Like plush or taxidermied?
Taxidermy.
Yeah, different things.
Yeah, the
my
eyes are
friend.
going to be a bit weird.
No, that's horrifying. I do not approve of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Plus, did we have the entire Valerian? I thought something happens, after he dies.
We have the whole Valerian, yes.
I thought we would be missing his head.
No, we just have the whole Valerian.
Okay,
He's
okay.
just
So just the entire man. Okay.
Yeah. Sarah, it would be weird to have a taxidermied man without a head.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know. Of all the weird things and all the reasons this would be weird.
Yeah, no. It happens. You have a Roman emperor, you want to make the best of it. Other options are that, a modern historian claims to have found the palace of Valerian next to the one of Shapur in the city of Bishapur, which is a new city that Shapur founded in Persia, which might indicate that he was well treated, but it's not really certain. Al-Tabari says that Valerian and his army were deported to the east and made to build the dam system I mentioned earlier, and then Valerian was either killed or freed after having his nose cut off.
Ouchie.
The Shahnameh claims that Valerian was asked to build a bridge by Shapur, and when it was done, he was rewarded with whatever treasure he desired, so presumably that palace before. And this is also when we get the Roman bridge, which is furthest east in the world, in Lower Mesopotamia, because it was built by the prisoners of war the Shapur had taken from Valerian's battle.
Oh.
And it is called the Emperor's Bridge,
I see.
because he was made to build it. And yeah, it's really weird because it looks very familiar to like Roman bridges you might find in Spain.
Yeah,
or
but just
Italy.
entirely
And
out
it's
of
just
the
like
usual
entirely out of
geographical.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they decided we have some Roman prisoners, might as well put them to good use.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
So, Serial, what do you think happened to Valerian? What would you do if you'd captured the emperor of your traditional rival? Which of these versions is your favorite?
Well, I think I would just continuously show it off. But I don't, I guess, I'm like, I don't know if I would treat him badly. Like,
I mean,
depends.
footstool isn't too bad.
mm,
It's humiliating, but it's not, terrible.
yeah.
The emperor just needs to kneel before you and then rise.
Yeah, we've had more merciful kings in the past,
True. We've had much worse, though.
Yes, we've also had much worse.
Like, Darius the Great would not have done this.
No.
Darius the Great would have impaled the man.
Yeah. Yes. And displayed the results.
Yes, exactly. In this case, he's flayed only after he's dead in one version.
Yeah. Mm.
So what's your favorite version? Treating him nicely and parading him around whenever you can?
I will go with that just because, like, that seems sensible to me.
That's fair. Yeah, there we go. Although I do love the taxidermied Valerian. That's great.
That is terrifying.
Yes. I've decided that in future Roman wars, whenever we lose a war, we'll have to hand back Valerian. And I need to remember to track where Valerian is because it's good to know who gets him in the end. But yeah, now that we've captured the Roman Emperor and the Roman army of the East has been destroyed for the second time in 2 decades, let's enjoy the fruits of our labor.
Yes, finally.
Shapur
So
pillages Syria, Cappadocia, and Cilicia, together with his son, the king of Armenia, takes other hundreds of thousands of people back to Iran and Mesopotamia. He encounters a few smaller Roman armies in the area, and they were all crushed and their commanders killed.
Yep.
But there was an unfortunate event that happened around this point, or at least unfortunate for Shapur himself. Because trying to deport hundreds of thousands of people, his forces were spread rather thin carrying all the loot and people.
Mm-hmm.
So the ruler of the city-state of Palmyra, a man called Odenathus, managed to capture some stragglers of the Sassanid baggage train along the way and harass Sassanid raiding parties, and he even retook some smaller cities such as Nisibis. Now, Roman sources, of course, claim that he later went on to try and march against Ctesiphon, but there's no clear evidence of this, and it looks like they're just trying to say, no, we didn't entirely suck, something was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, whatever the case may be, Odenathus began to build his own power base in the east, and made any further invasion by Shapur's armies more impractical than useful, because the east is depopulated twice. Now there's somebody sort of competent in charge. Let's just relax. We don't need this. And yeah, it's from this time period that Shapur commissions the royal reliefs of his victories against the Romans, with the most glorious one showing Shapur on horseback, with the 3 Roman emperors paying homage. And of course, he made an appropriate relief of victory over Valerian at the place of Naxxorostam, which is where his father had the investiture and where we had a ton of other Achaemenid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we are remembering that everything is good. And yeah, so now that Shapur has won his 3rd Roman war, he can just relax into a comfortable old age. In the last years of his life, the independence of the Palmyrene Empire in the Roman East would have been a good opportunity for an invasion, but Shapur was a wise man. Shapur realized that if he dies halfway through a war, that's going to be a mess for the succession. It's going to be complicated to deal
Turns
with.
out,
Let's not do that, please. So he decides, you know what, fine. I've invaded the West enough times. I don't want to do this. I don't want to risk my heir to the throne dying in battle for this stuff. I don't want to risk myself dying.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just keep everything peaceful and right the succession. And Shapur is so rigorous about his succession that he makes sure, because most kings have a succession plan for their heir, right? That's normal. If you're a good king, you do that. Shapur has a succession plan for his heir, What happens if he dies? What happens if he dies? What happens if he dies? He has like a list of all his sons in order of competence.
Yeah,
saying,
everything
okay,
tied.
I want these people to all succeed me in order. Do not deviate from this plan. Okay,
Trust me,
am
I
I
have thought
clear?
about this.
Yes, please. I've given them all titles in order of how capable they are. The more powerful ones are the ones who should succeed me. This is what I want.
Hopefully
Nobody
none of
mess
them take
anything
it the
up.
wrong way. That I literally
Exactly.
have put all of my children in a line of like most favorite to least favorite.
Yeah, pretty much. Somebody's gonna be unhappy, but you know.
I mean, to be
Well,
fair,
hopefully
like,
that has no
it could be like,
psychological
oh, I think
scars.
you're going to be more competent in this position. That doesn't necessarily mean I love you more or less. Like, if one of them is good
Yeah.
at math and one of them is not, you might not give the, archivist.
Yeah, if one of them is not going to be a good king of kings, well then that's fine. People have different skills.
But with that said,
With that said, somebody will take offense to this. We'll see in future episodes.
certainly.
But hey. But in the end, Shapur appoints his son, Hormizd I, as his heir, the former king of Armenia who had helped him in a lot of Western wars. He is his favorite. He is clearly the most capable. He'll be king. And then we're told that he died of illness in the city of Bishapur in May of 270,
Oh.
somewhere in his own 70s. And according to the Shahnameh, he told his son Hormizd to be the splendor of the nobility, the sanctuary of the poor, to be kind and generous. And thus ends the life of Shapur I, who is the one who finally brought us Valerian.
Yeah. That was so impressive.
And there we go.
I'm so ready.
Nice. I'm happy to hear that because he is very cool. Also, the hilarious thing to me is that in this same period, if you go through Roman emperors, there's been like 15 Roman emperors during his reign alone. Like,
Yes,
they're
I
not
know
going
they're
through a
doing
good
badly,
time.
Which,
We're helping with them going badly
Yep.
because we, killed one emperor, humiliated another, and imprisoned a third. So, also, we just destroyed a random Eastern army with no emperor attached to it.
Yeah, because they sent it our way for some reason.
They were just like, well, fine, might as well. So, yeah. So, you're happy with Shapur? You think he's
Very.
lived up to expectations?
Yeah, that was really amazing.
Nice. Very good. In that case, I think we should get ready to rate him and see how he does compared to our other kings. So, our first category is final moments. How interesting was his death? Dying of old age after planning, like over-planning his succession, making sure everything was nice and clean, giving last wise words of advice to his son.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Die in his 70s, at the time, definitely a good target.
Not shocking or impressive in the sense of like, oh, that way to go is like will stay with me forever. But honestly, knowing how this tends to go, I am so impressed that not only is like, oh, he's got an heir and everything is like tied up with a nice bow and nicely. No. This is like, this should hold for the next 3 generations if everything goes according to plan.
Yes, I have contingencies for my contingencies for my contingencies. Please just do everything in order. I'm giving you advice. I know what happens when civil wars happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think it's a good death. I like that it's... Again, I'm not going super high, but I think I'm going to match what I gave his father and give him a 2. Because it's like, we have the information. He has a goodbye speech for his son.
Yeah.
He's planned everything out. Good death, would recommend.
Yeah, like I said, not that impressive in the sense of a way to die, but very impressive in how everything is put together. So I will go with a 2 as well. I think that's fair.
2 as well? Okay. So with a 2 and a 2, we get a 2 out of 10 for final moments. Our next category is battle hardness. How good was he at war and fighting?
Amazing.
Well, very good. Very. So let's recap his achievements. What did he do? He conquered the city of Hatra, which had remained unconquered beforehand. He managed to defeat the Emperor Gordian and kill him in battle, and humiliate the Emperor Philip afterwards. So that's good. He managed to conquer part of the Kushan Empire and establish this Kushano-Sassanid dynasty, and frequently help them out in the east to try and expand their side of the empire. He suppressed a rebellion that happened at the heart of his empire at the start of his reign, quickly and efficiently. He destroyed 60,000 Romans at Barbalissus and pillaged Syria and Cappadocia without any problems. He conquered Armenia. He defeated Valerian and his 70,000 soldiers later on at Carrhae, captured the emperor alive, managed to continue pillaging the Roman East. The empire is as large as it's been. It is stable and orderly. He did an amazing job.
Yep, no complaints.
The only downsides I can say are that the Roman sources tell us that he was defeated at the beginning by Gordian, and that he was defeated at the beginning by Valerian.
Fair.
However, this could just be the Romans saying that while it was just Shapur, sending out scouts to know where the Romans are, the scouts being intercepted, and then having to retreat. We don't really know how it works. Shapur doesn't tell us about these defeats, but to be fair, he wouldn't.
Yeah.
So, your choice how much to evaluate this, because I think the Shapur definitely deserves either a 9 or a 10. How seriously we want to consider these defeats is probably what will make it.
True, because we've been taking what the Romans say also with a grain of salt, right? So we should do the same here.
Yeah.
If it makes some sense that he would not mention these defeats to look good,
Yeah, I mean, we know of his victories from a big document he writes that is basically his list of achievements.
Yes, all my
these
victories
are the cities I conquered,
in
these
order.
are the people I defeated.
Yeah.
He's not going to say, oh, but that time it didn't go super well, but I'm telling you anyway for honesty's sake.
Yeah. He doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, he's a king. He doesn't need to. But in defense of these possible defeats, they amount to nothing in the end.
Yes.
He kills one of the emperors who did this and captures the other.
Yeah, assume they happened.
It's not like it's a super consequential defeat. Other defeats that we considered were, for example, Darius the Great losing against the Scythians and against the Greeks, where it's losing against the Scythians was a little bit annoying. He didn't expand as much, but it did stabilize the empire, and the Greeks, kind of annoying, but nothing terrible. Do we want to give Shapur the 10? Saying that, yeah, those were minor defeats, but, it's like having some guys die during a battle. That's just how war works. It's not a defeat that you lost some people.
Mm-hmm.
Or do we say that, no, to get a 10, he would have to be absolutely perfect and nothing ever go wrong?
Did we ever give a 10 to anybody?
Well, I'm sure you can guess.
Darius?
No, Darius got a 9.
Cyrus?
No, Cyrus got a 8, actually. The 10s are Alexander the Great.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Seleucus the First and Mithridates the Second, who annihilates the nomads so hard that they don't come back for 300 years. So that's pretty harsh.
So what did they, did they fail in anything?
Alexander gets his men to mutiny against him in India, and he has to turn back against his wishes.
But
so
I
that's
mean,
part of military.
That was also can we please stop? We've gone across half the world.
Yeah, but
Control your men, Alexander.
Seleucus loses the city of Babylon at some point when he left it under a subordinate, and then he comes back and retakes it.
Yeah.
So it's a similar case of, it's a defeat, but in the end it doesn't amount to much. Mithridates the Great, what does he do? Mithridates the Great takes a while to get his initial victory, and then doesn't expand much further west against the Seleucids, but he does a pretty good job overall.
Yep.
I think someone we gave a 9 to was Ardashir, because he fought to a stalemate with the Romans and conquered an empire. I think Shapur is he just never loses permanently.
Yeah.
I think I'm happy to give him a 10. If you want to give him a 9 to balance it out, feel free, but I think he deserves a 10.
Yeah, I think the defeats they're not impactful enough to actually have any consequences, so if they did have consequences, even if they were small, it's we never recovered this, or there's never, But no, things get solved pretty quickly, so I think we should go for a 10. Because how many more times are we going to be able to?
Yeah, come on. Oh, also, just before I plug in the final number, he does kind of lose a bit of his baggage train to Odenathus, but I feel like that's just something that happens when you're deporting hundreds of thousands of people.
Fair
It's
enough.
a thing. But yeah, so congratulations, Shapur. With a 10 and a 10, you get a 20 out of 20 for battle hardness, our fourth only ruler to do so. Our next category is scheminess. How good was he at plots and manipulations? According to the Romans, he was pretty good at it. Because he managed to trick Valerian into coming to a discussion and then captured him.
That's not like a whole scheme. That's just like, let's see if it works. And it did.
Yeah, like, oh my god, he's actually doing it. He's actually doing it.
No, it's just come down for tea. I promise.
Yeah, the scheminess is like, he doesn't do too much. Like, if we believe the Romans, then okay, maybe some points. If we don't believe them, then not much. I don't know if you want to consider scheminess, but this is probably more Aaron Shine. The fact that instead of choosing to conquer parts of the Roman Empire, he chose to basically just transfer its population.
Mm-hmm.
So he was clever enough to, not go for the high cost option that is sort of the more normal option, but he went for the slightly more elaborate option, but that will still end up costing him less and benefiting the Empire more.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you want to consider that a scheme or if that's not what it falls into.
It's not really that schemey.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think I'm going to give him 1 point for the capturing Valerian story, because even if it didn't happen, there is at least a story about it, so it's something.
Sure.
But not much more.
We can give 1 point as a treat.
Yes. So you're also giving you 1?
Yes. But truly, like, this is not a story of manipulation and lies and, and conspiracy. Not. This is just a story of, this is how you plan a thing, and this is how you, like, militarily achieve that.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's important to have.
Yes?
I just thought of a new scheminess thing.
Oh.
Because we do have the story at the beginning with Hatra and him sort of seducing the princess and them scheming to get into the city.
But that wasn't even, like, no, if he had been in on that, like, if it was the other way around, if the princess, like, had no intention of betraying her city, but then he was like, oh, but, like, I am so handsome and I will, we will fall in love, and, like, and that was his purpose for courting her, then yes, absolutely. But it was the other way around. It was her just being like, oh, even though, of course, he might have encouraged it, but I assume, because of the way you told it, he had full intention to be like, oh, I like you, I will give you the rights that you haven't had, like, I will, I will treat you like you deserve to be treated, and then he realized that, no, like, she was fine, she was just a terrible person to her own city, and then he was like, God, no.
God, you suck. Okay. I think I'm just going to give him an extra point for that.
I'm not.
I think that I like that.
You can do that.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. So with a 2 and a 1, we get a 3 out of 20 for scheminess. Our next category is shock factor. How shocking was this man? I think he has something here. Well, he had this woman from Hatra, the princess of Hatra, dragged to death behind a horse.
Right.
That's pretty harsh.
That was intense.
Like, I understand that she wasn't a very nice person, but also that's kind of harsh. He then sacked and pillaged a lot of the Eastern Roman Empire, so that was intense. He deported hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people into his empire, which, when you say that coldly, doesn't sound that much, but when you imagine each individual person, like, a mother with a 2-year-old having to trek 200 kilometers with the army because the empire told her so, and moving to somewhere that she doesn't know, that's pretty harsh.
Agreed.
That's not something I would condone in a modern politician.
No.
Not good. So that's pretty intense. That's like mass deportation of people, which is a lot. Then as shock factor, we have Valerian. We have you capture the Roman emperor alive, and possibly use him as a footstool, which personally would have been my go-to, because what you want to do is dress him up really nice as an emperor, and then just have him kneel before you and then step on him and then be like, ha,
from a theatrical
look at me.
standpoint, yes, I get it. This is what a villain would do in a movie.
Yeah, I mean, monarchy is nothing if not theater.
So that is true.
You want to show yourself dressed beautifully and amazing and shining, stepping on a guy who's dressed beautiful and amazing and shining, showing that, yes, you're better than him. So that's pretty good on the shock factor. And then the taxidermied Valerian, which, again, is personally something I would have gone for if I were living at the time, because you want to remind people for generations to come that you did this to a Roman emperor.
Mm-hmm.
When you receive Roman ambassadors, you want to show them, here,
terrifying.
Have a look. Oh, this is just my taxidermied Valerian. I hope he doesn't scare you. Yes, he's in a growling bear pose, but
you can leave your coat over there on the Valerian.
Yeah, exactly. Just leave it there. It's fine.
Just taxidermy him to have his hands up as a coat hanger.
Yeah, lovely times. So that's pretty shocking, and otherwise, I don't know if you want to give like a rounding up for the fact that he ranks his sons in order of competence.
I guess that is pretty shocking in the sense of how well prepared everything was.
Yeah, that's true.
In the fact that, like, not only he prepared everything, but he was like, yeah, I've thought of, like, at least 30 plans. The entire alphabet of plans.
Yeah, basically, he's seen 13 million possibilities and has chosen the one that works.
Yes.
So I'm going for a pretty high shock factor. I think I'm going to start with 5 for mass deportations.
Yes.
Going to add a 1 for the princess dragged to death behind a horse. Yeah. And then a 2 for generic Valerian shenanigans for a total of 8.
That seems pretty
That's my thought.
I think I'll go for a 7. It's not,
Okay, that's fair enough.
But I agree with what we have listed here.
Those are the key attributes that he has. So, okay, with an 8 and a 7, we get a 15 out of 20 for shock factor, making him the 5th most shock factor. No, actually, wait. 1, 2, 3. The 4th most shock factory person on the podcast. So he's doing well.
Yeah, we haven't had, like, when we have a really high scorer is, like, off the charts. Like, when someone is really shocking, it's just everything is in that episode.
Yeah, it's very min-maxed towards shocking.
Like, of course you have to put it through the filter of, we are treating this from the lens of, we are assuming that there's cruelty in battle, and, like, there is, like, a certain amount of, things that would be considered shocking, now. That it's, well, since we're viewing this from a very particular point of history, then it's like, yeah, everyone is doing this. It's no longer shocking if everyone has this.
Yeah, exactly. As we saw in our Chandragupta special on Patreon, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yes.
No good man can become a king. Mm-hmm. No king goes to heaven.
Yep.
They've all done horrible things.
Yep.
But there's an especial shocking factor here. Okay, and our next category is Aaron Shine. How good was he for the Empire in general and Iran in particular?
Incredible. Amazing.
Let's list his achievements, shall we? He won 3 wars with the Romans. He expanded the empire into Armenia. He reconquered the bits of Roman Mesopotamia that were lost by the Parthians. He conquers bits of the Kushan Empire. He creates the Kushano-Sasanian Empire. He increases the population of the empire by several hundred thousands, if not millions. And specifically, he ensures that he can import a bunch of skilled people who know how to do things that aren't present in the empire. A bunch of very skilled engineers, artists, scientists, philosophers, all that sort of jazz. Does a lot of the stuff that way. He founds a bunch of new cities, including Shapur's city that is better than Antioch. And he builds massive irrigation projects so that Mesopotamia, which had long been depopulated, can flourish again and can sustain this new population and grow prosperous. The economy of the empire is doing great. His coins are amazing, and they continue to be unparalleled in the world. And he leaves a succession plan that is so crazily detailed that he ranks his sons in order. Yeah.
So a 10.
Yeah.
For me, at least.
Like, downsides. Like, the only thing you could say against him, and it's a small thing, is that he doesn't fully reform the empire. But that's just because his father already did that.
Yeah.
Shapur just keeps up everything, making sure that it keeps in order, it keeps stable. He makes sure that all his sons are kings, but it's not hereditary, so things don't get messy. And they can help him rule the empire. Like, his son and heir, Hormizd, rules Armenia and helps out with the Roman wars and is very competent at that, and that's why he's the heir. So, does a very good job at that. So, I think, yeah, he fully deserves a 10. I don't know what else you want this man to have done. It's just like, come on.
Yeah, like, honestly, it could have just been like, oh, I keep the empire that my father handed me down stable, and that already would have been a great achievement.
Yeah.
It could have been one of these quiet, episodes where it's like, yeah, there's not much, but because just, like, not much goes wrong, so,
Mm-hmm.
But so many things go right, which is amazing.
It's good stuff. So yeah, with a 10 and a 10, he gets a 20 out of 20 for Aaron Shine, reaching a prestigious club shared by Cyrus the Great, Darius the Great, Mithridates the Great, Ardashir the Great, and Shapur the First. The problem with Shapur the First is that the next Shapur is also very good, so it's difficult to decide who gets to be the Great. So it's like,
the Great and the
he's
Great
Shapur al-Janud. Yeah, the Great and the Great.
The Great
two,
and the
sequel.
Awesome,
Yeah, that works. Okay, and our next category is Face of Faces. What do you think this man looked like? And now I can send you his face.
Well,
not his face, his crown.
Draw him. Right, yes. Give me some pointers.
I'll send you his crown so you know what he looks like.
Give me some stuff.
So he has a slight variation from his father's crown, but yeah, I think I prefer Shapur's one. It's slightly more elaborate. It's a good look. Okay, so Cyril has finished their drawing. Let me pick it up and describe it to you all. Excellent, love it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Because, yeah, of course, Cyril has chosen the only logical thing to depict, which is Shapur sitting on a lovely chair. He is lounging about. He has a nice cup full of wine in his hand, a bow at his back, a lovely crown, crenellated with a big poof of hair around it. He has this traditional beard, nice floofy hair, and a nice long cloak. And at his feet are 2 boots, but those boots are placed firmly upon a planking Valerian, who is there lying with his laurel wreath, looking dejected, as well he should, because, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, this is truly the essence of Shapur. Thank you, Cyril. It is great.
You're very welcome.
And if anybody wants to see this portrait, you can go to the episode notes at the bottom of your podcast screen, or you can go to our website on Cyril's Portrait Gallery or the Discord. And now let me show Cyril what he actually looked like.
Yeah, we have the relief.
Now we have 2 reliefs.
Oh.
Because one of them is the famous relief, which is what we're going to use for his Face of Faces. And then there's another one which I don't use because it's slightly harder to see, but it has all 3 emperors in it.
Nice.
So, here we go. Consider that the legs of the horses are full person tall.
Whoa. Oh, this is incredible. Awesome. This is so majestic.
Yes,
I love
it's
this.
Good stuff.
I love this so much. So intense. The crown is so cool. You can see the folds on his trousers and like decorations of the... So it's Shapur on horseback, even though I think the horses are like made slightly smaller than they would be proportionally, just so like you can focus on the people. Holding his sword and holding out a hand. He's holding like the hands of the...
Well, with the other hand, he's holding the hand of the Emperor Valerian,
right,
who has been captured.
Yep.
So he's just showing
the
that
bound
he
hands.
has
Yes.
him, yes. And kneeling before him is Philip the Arab.
Right.
Which
This is really cool.
humiliating,
This gets a 10 from me. I love this.
Yes.
It's also
it gets a
contemporary,
10.
right?
This is him
Incredible.
making it, which is great. Which is like, this is my favorite portrait of all the ones I've
It's so
encountered so
cool.
far.
It has so much
unless
detail.
the last 10 kings have something amazing, this is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
This is very good. And here on the bottom, we have one that is slightly more faded, but it has all the emperors.
Oh, yeah, but
Because
it's
you can
still
see-
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see Philip kneeling in front of Shapur on horseback.
Then under the horse...
Valerian, under the horse is Gordian, who has been killed. And being taken by the hand is Valerian, just next to Shapur.
Yep. Amazing. I love this.
This is very nice. I appreciate it. It's great.
Really cool depiction.
Everybody, please look at these because they're amazing.
Yes.
Yes.
You will not
Shapur is a
regret it.
boss. Yes. Good man. Okay, so I think we've agreed that a 10 is the only thing we can give him.
Yes.
So let's give it to him. With a 10 and a 10, he gets a 5 out of 5 for Face of Faces.
Wonderful.
Next up is lengthiness. How long do you think this man ruled for?
Oh, so we're counting probably when his father died, right? And not the period when he was...
We're counting his father.
Yeah.
That is a massive confusion among historians.
Okay.
Because people say he ruled for these years or these years plus 2, and it's unclear, nobody knows. But what we are going to count is from when his father died.
Right, so he is sole ruler of the empire. Yeah. Every time I say empire now, I have to think of Plumas and being like, well, that's not that's not technically the correct
realm.
way. Yes. But you know what we mean, so that's the point.
Of the big blob of land where people live.
Yes. What could it be? I don't know. He was already like in his 20s or so, I have to assume, when he got the throne
we remember
for
that he was in his 20s when his father started his rebellion.
And then
so
he
was
lived up
helping
to
his father out.
Right,
personally.
and you told me he lived like into his 70s, so I'm going to say 50 years. Because at least it has to be that.
No, it is not 50 years, because 50 years includes also all the reign of his father.
Oh, okay.
Because it was in his 20s when his father rebelled at the start, so
Okay.
he has slightly less.
Okay, well, then let's say 40.
Actually, a lot less. He managed to do all that in just 28 years.
What? Okay, I did not think it would go like... 40 was already like, I mean, it has to be, right?
Nope. Did a lot of stuff in
Wow.
not very much time.
That's even more impressive, honestly.
He is very cool. He is a cool man. So yeah, he reigned 28 years from 242 to 270. And divide
Amazing.
that by 10 gives him a 2.8 out of 5 for lengthiness. And that brings us to the final score, which is a grand total of 67.8 out of 100, placing him 4th overall, above Seleucus I and below Alexander the Great.
Wow.
So he
much
is
more
doing
competent
well for
ruler
himself.
than Alexander, but we know this
Yes,
is not
definitely.
how the points work.
They're not
Yeah.
being ranked on competence, and we're going to decide who the best one is at the royal hunt at the end of it all.
Exactly.
But if we're just looking at points, at pizzazz, at drama, he is 4th.
At entertainment.
Yes. So that's very good. Congratulations, Shapur. You are pretty intense. And that leads us to the final question, where I think we have an answer.
I'll let
which
you
is
do
to
your
say,
little thing.
is he Valerian enough? Is he restorative enough? Is he deporting thousands of people enough to be a Shahanshah? Or just a Shahanah?
He has to get it. This was
Yes,
really cool.
I mean, if not him,
he is a
who?
Shahanshah.
He is the best boy. He deserves it. So congratulations, Shapur. You can go into the Paradise Gardens and tell your father that he may have built the empire, but you put it on the map. And you are
Wow.
both equally great. You are very impressive.
That's incredible.
Let's see how long we can keep the streak going.
His father chose well, you know?
Exactly. Let's see if Shapur chose his heir equally well.
Well, let's see how that goes, because what on one hand is like, did he make the right decision, and on the other hand, did his decisions, like, were they respected? So, I guess.
Two very valid questions.
We
we'll
will
have
see.
to find out. So yeah, so thank you for listening. We hope you had a good time. If you want to support our podcast, there are several ways to do that. You can join our Patreon, like our new patron, Robin McHugh. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where we're going through the history of the Maurya kings of India. Ashoka the Great is going to be coming out next month.
That
We
was
just had Bindusara
an
last
episode.
week. And yeah, it's going to be a fun time, and you get a bunch of other backup episodes that we still have.
Oh wait, no, sorry. Have we done No, we haven't done Ashoka.
We've done Bindusara.
Yeah, we've done his father.
Ashoka not yet.
But we talked so much about him. I was like, yeah, we definitely talked about him already.
Yes, that. Yeah, otherwise, if you don't want to support us monetarily, that's fine, but we'd appreciate if you could leave us a review on your podcast app of choice so more people know that we exist and can join us.
Yeah. Spread the word.
Yes. And yeah, we hope you join us next time for Hormizd the First, and we'll see, will Shapur's heir do as good a job? Will he do better? Will he crush the empire? Who knows?
Well, you
Let's
mentioned
find
that
out.
not 3 people would get Shahanshah in a row. So now I'm just like
I'd say
worried
that
about
not
how
yet.
bad it's going
We'll
to be.
see what happens. It might be. Who knows?
Oh boy.
But yeah, so we hope you have a lovely week, and we'll see you next time.
Take care,
Goodbye.
everyone. Goodbye.